Hello, everybody. Can I have I'm making a motion to come out of executive session. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. Dorr?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis?
Yes.
Ms. Healy?
Yes.
Ms. Zahowski?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. All right, everybody. Good evening. Well, welcome to the Riverhead School Board Business Meeting. Can we have a pledge of allegiance? Can we have a flag, please? I pledge allegiance
To the
to
flag
the flag
of the United
United
States
States
of America and to the republic,
which stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okie dokie, we're frozen. Are we all back yet?
Yes.
Do you see the whole board? Because I don't. I don't see everybody.
I see everyone.
Do you?
everybody's there.
Oop,
Gallery.
I'm frozen, wait. I'm having problems with my Wi-Fi, I guess. Okay, so we're going to the public hearing of Code of Conduct. On the proposed changes of the District Code of Conduct under the relevant law. A public hearing is required on an annual basis to review any proposed changes. I therefore declare this hearing open at 7:11. If there are no objections from my fellow board members, I would offer the floor to Christine Tona, Interim Superintendent, who will deliver a brief presentation on the proposed changes.
Thank you, Ms. Downs. Good evening, everyone. Annually, we have to review our code of conduct and do a public hearing, and tonight is that evening. Okay. So the code of conduct review process, each spring, the district-wide committee reviews our current policy. The committee is made up of teachers, administrators, parents, and students, as well as some non-instructional staff as well. And we review the policy. We have a very comprehensive policy, so typically there's not many changes that need to be made. So, and then the policy is brought to the committee, the Intergovernmental Committee, the Policy Committee of the Board of Education. And then at that point, it's brought to a public hearing. And tonight is that public hearing. And tonight will also be the first reading of the policy. And after 3 readings, the board will adopt the code of conduct. So the proposed changes, just to summarize, in section 1, we had some changes of language. A lot of the language was related to participating in remote or distance learning, regardless of location. And then we had some definitions. Discrimination was added as a new definition in the code of conduct. And you can see the definition that the committee agreed upon, that it includes using the person's actual or perceived race, color, weight, national origin, ethnic group, religion, religious practice, disability, gender, sexual orientation, or sex as a basis for treating another in a negative manner or to deny them rights, equitable treatment, or access to facilities, activities, or benefits which are available to others. Harassment was a definition that was already in the policy, but we've expanded it to include electronic communication threats and threats regarding personal and or political biases. We added the definition for PPE due to our current pandemic situation, and that it stands for personal protective equipment. And then under the definition for violent student, the definition has been expanded to include behavior during remote instruction. Continuing the changes on the next slide, under teacher responsibilities in creating a positive school climate, we added the political biases. So it reads, address personal and or political biases that may prevent equal treatment of all students in the school or classroom setting. And then we added political discussions should be reserved for appropriate classroom conversations related to current events. Then in section 5, under the student dress code, we added this language that the Riverhead Central School District will adhere to the CDC, New York State Department of Health, and local Department of Health guidance and recommendations that all persons will wear face coverings in all district schools, buildings, facilities, and while transported on school buses. And then also related under public conduct on school property, prohibited conduct will include refusing to follow preventative actions required by law, including the use of personal protective equipment or PPE. The next slide shows all of our Dignity Act coordinators in the district, which are our principals and assistant principals. So if any family member, parent or guardian feels that they need to address Dignity Act violations, they should reach out to the building administration. And then the next steps, once this policy is adopted by the board, it will be disseminated to all staff. It will be reviewed by the staff at faculty meetings and department meetings. The adopted code of conduct will be added to our website, and copies will be available in the main offices of all of our schools. So I'd like at this time to thank our committee members. You can see them listed here. We have administrators, teachers, parents, and students. Their input was valuable and very much appreciated. And moving forward, anyone who wishes to submit written comment on any of these changes within the next 30 days, you can send a letter to the Board of Education, or you can reach out via email as well. And we'll review any of the comments as we move the policy forward over the next 2 meetings, get to the third time at reading and adoption. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tona. Are there any members of the Board of Education who have questions or wish to make comments? Okay, before we conclude, are there any comments or questions from members of the public?
Mr. Schneider, is there anyone in the Zoom?
Yes, there are 2 people waiting. I don't know whether they're here to comment on the code of conduct, but we can let them in and ask, I suppose. All right, here comes Chris and Jane Netwich.
Are there any comments or questions from members of the public?
Mr. Schneider, is there anyone in the Zoom?
Could you please lower the volume on your YouTube?
They're here to comment on the code of conduct, but we can let them in and ask.
Please, Ms. Netwich.
All right, here comes Chris and Jane Netwich.
Are there any comments or questions from members of the public?
Mr. Schneider, is there anyone in the Zoom?
Could you please lower the volume on your YouTube?
They're here to comment on the code of conduct, but we can let them in and ask.
Please, Ms. Netwich.
All right, here comes Dan. Should I put them back in the waiting room?
Yeah, I don't think they're ready.
Okay. And the other person who's in the waiting room is named Mary Beth.
Let's try Mary Beth. Audio connected?
Not yet, no. I can put this person back in the waiting room, Mrs. Downs. You can come back to them later if you'd like.
Okay. All right, so there's an item on our agenda later this evening to approve the first reading of this policy. As Ms. Tona just reminded us, the board will accept written comments on the proposed changes for the next 30 days, at which point the public hearing will be closed. Thank you to all who have participated this evening. Seeing no additional people wishing to speak, I now therefore declare this public hearing adjourned at 7:19 p.m. Okay, so now we move on to public comments on agenda items. Is it possible that those two are in there for that? Mr. Schneider?
The only person still in the waiting room is Mary Beth's iPad. I can try to admit her again if you'd like.
Yeah, give it a shot,
Okay.
please.
Okay, Mrs. Downs, I think it's connected.
Mary Beth? Hello, Mary Beth, are you there? Can I put it back?
Okay. All right, there's no one else in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, Ms. Downs. First, I'd like to congratulate the 86 Riverhead High School students and recent graduates who were recognized by the College Board. 55 of these students were named AP Scholars, and 13 were named AP Scholars with Honor, 18 as AP Scholars with Distinction, and one student, senior Ravi Minucha, earned the status of National AP Scholar. Congratulations. We're very proud of these students and wish them continued success at Riverhead High School and in their college and career pursuits. The mobile school pantry began its monthly distribution yesterday, and we would like to thank Long Island Cares for partnering with us and to provide free food and essentials to families throughout the school year. Thank you. And I would like to thank everyone for their support and patience during our reopening. We've certainly had our challenges, but our hybrid and virtual models are getting stronger every day. We continue to work with the Suffolk County Department of Health for guidance when positive COVID cases are brought to our attention. Our continued priority is the health and safety of our staff and students. And just a reminder, I was on a call with some of our politicians and local organizations earlier this afternoon, but a reminder that the deadline for responding to the 2020 census is September 30th. Participation of all of our families in the district will help ensure that the school district and the community receives its equitable share of federal funding. In addition to impacting the level of federal money our district receives over the next decade, the 2020 census will determine the amount of federal aid our community receives for many different programs. And the 2020 census is easy to complete. The questions are simple. To complete the 2020 census, visit my2020census.gov or visit census2020suffolkcounty.com for additional information and direct links to the 2020 census. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Toner. Okay, so consent agenda. Can I hear a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? Mr. Dorr?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis?
Yes.
Ms. Healy?
Yes.
Ms. Zuhowski?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Go to, I can't wait till we go public. New business. Approval of funding of reserves. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, cares, or concerns?
Yes. If my calculations are correct, we're putting into the other reserves, not the unappropriated fund balance, the almost $4 million, $3.947 million. What did we put into our reserves last year?
Mr. Schneider?
It's approximately the same amount of money.
So you're saying there is no additional money from our shutdown
The audit committee met with the auditor on, I believe, the 16th. The auditor reviewed the numbers with them, and far be it from me to speak for the members of the audit committee. I welcome any of them to jump in, but essentially the message from the auditor, I believe, was that because the district was paying COVID-related pay to members of the CSA who came into work during the period of the quarantine, whatever savings was picked up was then spent out on that salary. But I would invite members of the audit committee to jump in and have that conversation rather than me.
Okay, and we are only putting 4% in the unappropriated fund balance?
Ms. Downs, would you like me to address that?
Yes, please, Mr. Schneider.
That is the way the resolution reads. That, I believe, was the consensus of the members of the audit committee who were at the meeting. Again, I believe there's an update that is going to be read to the board about the meeting later on. I don't know if any of the members who are at the meeting want to talk about it now.
We do have a reading of the committee minutes later on in this. If you want to wait. Virginia, you look like you want to jump.
Yes, because well, when we looked at what was after the 4%, there was really only enough, and we couldn't even fully fund what was originally suggested. So we did the 4 reserves because that was what was highly recommended by the auditor. Especially last year, we spent we appropriated 2.3 million for the employee benefit, and so we only could fund the 2 million this time. And the same thing when they looked at the workers' comp, she highly recommended that was also funded, and I believe we ended up doing, what was it, 800,000 for that, Sam?
Yes, that's correct.
700 into the workers' comp. I think.
Yeah.
Right, and we didn't fund the repair reserve. We only did the TSR and the ESR, which that rate is going up next year to 16.21%.
Yes.
So in anticipation for that. And that we knew that when those bills came in, we didn't have to go into the general fund. We could go into the reserves to pay those bills because they come in every year. And that left us with the 4%, and that in that 4% we have an encumbrance of 1.1 million, and the 2.6 unreserved appropriated that always floats us. So really after that, that's 3.7 million. It leaves us the 2 million to get us somewhat through this year. Did I get that right, Sam?
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary. I think the most important thing there, Mrs. Healy, is that the reserves that the committee, I believe the consensus committee were to fund are used as revenue sources for the district each and every year, and not replenishing them will lead them to be empty within a year. And so I think the general feeling was that because we rely on these reserves as funding sources, we need to make sure that they stay replenished. Would that be a fair statement, Mrs. Healy?
Right, and so I just wanted to point out is that especially the employee benefit, we paid out over 2.3, is 2,355,000, and we only were able to put 2 million. So we're
Right.
We're going to be using some of what's already in that reserve, but that's what we had.
Correct.
So we have more than enough in the reserves to pay out what we normally pay out because we still have leftover from last year.
We also are facing a 20% in state aid.
We may be facing a deduction in state aid. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just asking about what did we have left in the reserves before we funded them this year?
I can give you those numbers in just a minute. Hold on, please. All right, in unaudited figures, this is my rough estimate, and since I don't have the final figures in front of me from the auditor, but the unaudited amount, you have about $650,000 left in the workers' compensation reserve and about less than $150,000 in the employee retirement reserve. And I think you have about $300,000 in the teacher's retirement reserve. That's essentially where you are. As Mrs. Healy pointed out, there was no, there was no funding of any other reserves that we don't use as revenue sources, such as the repair reserve fund.
Okay, is it, from a report I read from the controller, about 60% of the school districts on Long Island go above that 4% fund balance. I still don't understand why we're not one of them. And I still don't understand all this extra money, why we can't find $900,000 to have our students play athletics, perform in music and in the arts. That would still roughly leave $3 million to be put into these reserve funds.
Well, it's not extra money. It's money that we use. The reserves were used last year.
It's money that we didn't
Fund
spend
everything.
this last year.
No, we,
It was. You've sat on the audit committee for how many years? Do you realize how important it is to fund the reserves?
I do. And I'm not saying
Okay.
delete our reserves. I'm saying,
Well, you are.
no, I'm saying take the $947,000 off to fund our sports, music, and the rest of the programs for our students and put $3 million in our reserves.
So for which reserve would you like to pull that from? Because workers' comp, we spent over $700,000 last year. I believe Mr. Schneider said there's $100,000 left in that. So we need the $7 million. So, and then the LR, we put 2.3 we laid out. We just, we're putting back 2 million in.
right.
So I really don't see where you see there's extra money.
I'm saying we can get by with $3 million in the reserve, not even accounting for our unappropriated fund balance. I'm going to be voting no.
Okay, Mr. Dorr, you know. Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Ms. Healy,
Yes, and I just want to qualify it because one thing I did ask the auditor is what do we do if we get 20% in cuts? I said, where do we get the 4.5 to 6 million? Because I thought that would be somewhere in here, and it's not. So that 4%, that whatever's left over, that 2 million is what we're going to have to use, and when we're still going to be faced with having to make up that shortfall. So
If that ever comes.
we have to be prepared.
thank you, Ms. Healy. Ms. Zahowski,
No.
and myself is a yes. Proposition passes. Approval of contract. This is a contract with Sterling Academy.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
Ms. Zahowski,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Motion passes. Renewal of contract. This is a renewal of contract with an educational and behavioral services. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Any comments? Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Ms. Healy,
Yes.
Ms. Zahowski,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Motion passes. Approval of memorandum agreement. This is an agreement with the Riverhead Teachers Aid Unit. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Ms. Healy,
Yes.
Ms. Zahowski,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Letter E, approval of employment agreement. This is an agreement with a teacher for special ed classes. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Thank you. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Ms. Healy,
Yes.
Ms. Zahowski,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Motion passes. Now, this is letter F, is the second reading of the revised board policy on the public.
I make a motion, we table this?
Yes, exactly. We're tabling this. I would also like to table this for the simple fact that the public was misinterpreting what we were trying to do here. And there's no reason to get everybody thinking that we're doing something that we're not. So can I have a second on motion to table?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? Not seeing any. Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Ms. Healy,
Yes.
Ms. Zahowski,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. This will be tabled forever. Okay, approval of donations. We have donations of 2,600 face masks that came from a group called Masks for Students. It's a group made up of teachers and community members, parents, all over the place. They handmade masks, face masks for the students. Number two is $500 from Tanga Management for the Social Emotional Learning Initiative at Pulaski Street School. And the third is $3,000 for the 2020 Agricultural in the Classroom Grant Program from Suffolk County Soil and Water Conservation District for the Butterfly Effect. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it with thanks to everybody who donated.
Exactly. I was going to say, everybody, thank you. This is more than what I thought. This is wonderful. And those masks, the kids are gonna love them. Anybody else? I got my second, right?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Ms. Healy,
Yes, and thank you, everyone.
Ms. Zahowski,
Yes. Thank you.
and myself, and thank you. We're gonna add here at the end here, we gotta add letter H, the code of conduct that we just seen. For some reason it didn't make it on here, so we're adding letter H to the code of conduct, the first reading. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second, please.
Second.
And comments. Mr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis,
Yes.
Ms. Healy,
Yeah.
Mr. Houski,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Okay, opportunity for board members on the committees. The audit committee, would you like to read your minutes,
I'm
please?
sorry, Ms. Downs, weren't you going to have a letter I?
Letter I is, where is that?
You were going to add the future meetings?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yes. Sorry, everybody. Letter I is future meetings, and they're going to be in person. We're going back to in person, correct, Ms. Toner?
That's the plan, but there are
That's the
limitations.
plan. Fingers crossed, people. So we'll go back to our own thing. Thing is, we're only allowed 50 people, and that includes everyone that you see on this screen right now. So it's only 50 people that are allowed.
You're frozen.
We can't hear you, Ms. Downs.
I just froze.
Yep, you're unfrozen now. Well,
Okay. Mr. Dorr,
I don't think we vote on this.
Yeah, you don't need to vote on that, Ms. Downs. That was for informational purposes for the committee.
Right. But I have a question about that.
yeah,
So
Mhm.
with only 50 people allowed, not that I think we've ever had that, but in the event that we did, how is that going to be handled if there's 52 people?
that's up to security, right, Ms. Toner?
Yeah, it will have to be a first come, first served basis once we know how many people the board and the attorney and myself and the district clerk and Mr. Schneider make up on, and we have to socially distance and we'll have to wear masks. And then however many seats are left to get to 50, first come, first served basis. Those people will have to socially distance and wear masks. Mr. Hines is going to video and audio meeting and live stream it, and then also post the recording. So lots of new technology and procedures will happen on the October 13th meeting. So we're going to finalize all of the specifics and get that out to the public as soon as we can. We'll probably still allow the written comments in as well on the form that we've been providing with the board agendas, and then the district clerk can read the questions to us while we're in person.
Right. So it's still gonna work the way it's working now, plus we're gonna be on the outside too. Okay? So the audit committee ready to report their minutes?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The audit committee made up of Virginia Healy, Matthew Wallace, and myself met on September 16th with Deputy Superintendent and two of our auditors. Ken Zabrowski, our internal auditor from Questar, 3 BOCEs, reviewed 2 audits he had conducted in the 2019-2020 school year concerning the practices and procedures of the district operation. The first, he reviewed an audit of the special education department. He noted very good communication between the special education staff and the business office. He also found that the clerical staff in the business office have an excellent command of the details of the STAC reporting, which is a New York State Education Department system. Districts use to track and report the expenses to educate certain special education students. Mr. Zabrowski said that the district has made great progress since the last special education internal audit in 2013-14 in areas such as STAC reporting of BOCES high-cost students, the proper calculation and reporting of extended school year transportation costs, and improved tracking of student attendance at the Timothy Hill Children's Ranch. He also noted that one minor observation in his report, despite one issue, the district is in pretty good shape compared to other districts in this function area. He then reviewed the audit of the purchasing department. He found several areas of concern, including in the procedures used to obtain prices of certain services. The audit committee members directed the administration to prepare a corrective action plan to Mr. Zabrowski for inclusion in the audit, and the Board of Education will be asked formally to accept these audits at a future board meeting. Sorry. When we met with Jill Sanders, our external auditor from the firm Cullen and Danowski, Ms. Sanders presented the committee with a draft of the annual financial statements. There is a good internal control structure in place, she said, noting that her audit did not find any issues that would result in a management letter. She noted that the audit was an unmodified opinion, which is the ideal audit status. Ms. Sanders also reviewed the historical trends of the district, noting that the district has succeeded in financial stability, where there's no peaks or valleys, and she praising that achievement. The federal single audit will be conducted in the winter months. Ms. Sanders also reviewed the extracurriculum activity audit. She said that the audit showed that all activity was done in conjunction with the standards set out by the New York State Education Department. And then we then engaged in a lengthy conversation to review the options for the use of the 3.9 million, which amounts to the excess fund balance available as of June 30th of this year. The committee also discussed the viewpoints of Chris Dorr, an audit committee member who is not in attendance due to the restriction of the size of the committee. The committee discussed the pros and cons of funding the unassigned fund balance in excess of the statutory limit of 4%. The committee discussed the pros and cons of using the unassigned fund balance to fund athletics and clubs. And we also discussed the multi-year impact of these decisions. We arrived at a general consensus on distribution of the funds, and we asked the administration to draft a resolution for consideration for tonight's meeting that reflected that allocation. We agreed that the Board of Education needed to finalize the decision on the funding levels tonight so as to follow Ms. Sanders to finalize the audit report and file said report with the relevant state authorities. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. The Wellness Committee?
The Wellness Committee met on September 15th of 2020. The committee reviewed the cafeteria program. The closure of schools in March caused a significant financial hit to the cafeteria program, which is entirely self-supporting. The district served 67,982 meals from March 18th through June 30th. As a comparison, it was estimated that the district was on track to serve 55,000 lunches in the month of March alone. The summer meals program, which allowed the district to serve meals in Riverhead, as well as 5 nearby districts, brought the cafeteria program a profit. The district served 14,514 meals and was able to claim the reimbursement from the federal and state governments. Beginning this fall, all 7 schools in the district will be part of the community eligible provision, which allows students to eat breakfast and lunch each day at no cost, regardless of a family's ability to pay. Due to the cohort model and the number of students on 100% virtual instruction, meal service in many schools has been slow. The program may need to start reducing the hours of part-time cafeteria on Wednesdays if there are no elementary students in the district. Bagged breakfasts and lunches are available at the 4 K-4 schools each weekday from 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Parents are invited to take meals with them when they pick up their children or stop by later in the evening for meals. Additionally, bagged breakfasts and lunches are being distributed on Wednesday mornings on district buses using the elementary school bus run. Parents or students wanting a meal should be at the elementary bus stop in their neighborhood approximately 45 minutes after the normal pickup time to receive a meal. The committee reviewed changes to physical education instruction for 2020-2021 school year. Students must be at least 12 feet from each other during any activity in which heavy exertion could occur. For that reason, the physical education classes are being conducted outside to the greatest extent possible. Students are being taught fitness classes, yoga classes, and dancing classes, with each student standing in his or her own square of socially distanced space. Equipment is not being used because of the need to sanitize between classes. The committee also discussed immunization requirements. New York State issued guidance on August 28th stating that all students, even those on full virtual instruction, must be in compliance with the immunization mandate. As of September 15th, the following numbers of students at each building are not in compliance with immunization requirements. Aquabog had 9, Phillips 5, Riley 12, Roanoke 4, Pulaski 158, middle school 110, high school 120 students are missing a meningitis vaccine, and a further 45 students are missing other mandatory vaccines. Beginning this year, the district has been assigning a nurse to the Peconic Community School for 2 hours per day to oversee the nursing needs of the private school. The district, which also is required to have nurses at the Riverhead Charter School and St. John Paul II, had not previously provided nursing services at Peconic Community School. The district nursing staff developed a letter that will be given to the parents of any student who displays signs of COVID-19 at school. The letter allows the district to present a uniform list of medical expectations that students must meet before they can return to school.
Thank you. Health and Safety Committee, Wallace?
Yes. Yep. All right. So the Health and Safety Committee is made up of Lori Downs, Virginia Haley, and myself. On September 17th, we met with approximately 20 staff members and some local first responder agencies. We went over some COVID-19 procedures. The district has a contact with Suffolk County Department of Health, in which our head of security is working with on a daily basis. Students is the number one, concern here. And according to what's going on with the school and the administration and all, the students are definitely following the rules with wearing their mask and all, which is a good thing. Let's see, the teachers are working on the barricading during the lockdown drills, except we're not going to have them set up in the corner of a room due to the COVID stuff. So they're working on barricading and lockdown drills as best as we can with the situation at hand. Also, we discussed the Share app on the website. So if people feel that they see things going on, they can just do an anonymous report and, it will be looked into. There's been, we talked about a nationwide shortage of the nitrate gloves, which the nurse's office is using. They're important for them to use. There is vinyl gloves being distributed. So there aren't a shortage of actual gloves, but it's just the type of gloves. So the administration is going out to local vendors or local stores and buying them just to help keep up with the demand. Lexan dividers were ordered back in August. However, they have not returned. The supplier in California says they were all shipped out last week. So the maintenance department has been manufacturing, some dividers themselves with some Lexan they've been picking up from local vendors. Over the summer, the custodial staff went into the classroom and moved all but the essential furniture, just with the anticipation on the social distancing and be able to spread out the classrooms. So they do go in every night and wipe down the flat surfaces. In the elementary schools, they're being more diligent in wiping down every single thing in the room on the Wednesdays when there's no children in the class. Let's see here. There was some work done. There was some asbestos abandonment projects done from the repair reserve at Pulaski and in the middle school. And transportation, the bus drills have been moving along. Each cohort has to participate in each drills. Due to the COVID, the students will not be participating in exiting from the rear of the bus. So the committee that was there, they went over on how they're doing it. It seems to be a pretty good plan which they're running. And the drivers clean the seats and all the touching points with Virex and other cleaning materials in the bus at the in between every route and at the end of every day. Let's see, we got that. And the drivers are encouraged, you know, every student has their own seat. There's no, unless there's a family riding on the bus together, you know, every student has their own seat for the social distancing. And finally, the chief of police is looking to additional crossing guards. So anybody that is looking for extra work that wants to be a crossing guard, they should apply with the police department. That's it, Mrs. Downs.
Okey doke. FA, Miss Lisa.
There you are.
Wait, are we able to make any other comments?
I just asked.
No, you didn't come through.
I'm sorry. I can't tell if I did or didn't.
I have a
yeah.
comment.
Go right ahead, Mr. Dorr.
I'm just wondering if there's a plan for our elementary schools to go to school on Wednesdays. Our elementary students need to be in school as often as they can. I don't think it's right for them to be home on a Wednesday. Basically, the elementary teacher should be filming a lesson so the students get to see their teacher in person on these Wednesdays. It's not right for them to have a planning day on Wednesdays when the middle school and high school teachers are not. They're providing lessons for their students that are in person and their ones that are remote on their non-cohort days. I don't see how it's equitable to our teachers. If the teachers are not providing these video lessons on these Wednesdays, it's up to our administrators to hold them accountable for doing that. If this continues, our elementary students are only going to be in school 72 days out of the 180 that they're required. And on those other 108 days, they're getting basically handouts or an iPad app. These young children need more time in the classroom. I think we need to find a way to either alternate the Wednesdays or find some way to get them in school more. Secondly, I just want to say to everybody who's been writing letters and parents of the athletes, the musicians, and the actors, don't give up hope. We're still trying to find a way to make this work. I'll do everything I can to see that it's possible, and just keep the faith.
Anyone else with any comments? No? You still can hear me, right?
Now we can.
Downs, can I just respond very quickly?
Absolutely, Ms. Toner.
Thank you. Mr. Dorr, thank you for your comment and bringing our hybrid situation to the table tonight. We are scheduling a follow-up meeting of the district task force. I had promised that we would meet in October once we had the first month of instruction down on our belts so that we can review and refine if necessary. So thank you for your comments, and I'll bring those back to the committee when we meet. Hopefully the end of next week is the plan. And I'll share it at the next board meeting, any updates, if not sooner, as to what our hybrid model looks like. Thank you.
Is that it? Any comments? Okie dokie. Opportunity for RCFA. Ms. Lisa, please.
Members of the board, the RCFA would like to welcome Allison Fox, Griselda Sagastume, and Kelly Schulteis to the faculty as probationary employees. In addition, the faculty continues adjusting to educating students during a global pandemic and the many challenges that come along with the circumstance we are in. The teachers of this district are dedicated to the students whom they serve and have been working tirelessly to create the best educational environment possible in spite of the disjointed setting this pandemic places us in. Gregory Wallace, RCSA President.
Thank you. Opportunity for the public. Ms. Tonin, do we have anything that is written in?
Yes. Ms. Rayam, would you like to read those for us?
Sure. Yeah, we have two comments that were sent in, two questions. The first is from Jane Netwich from Aquabog. The first part of her comment, good evening. Our son is in middle school. Most of his classes have no more than 6 kids in a class. Many other parents who have children in different cohorts have said the same class sizes are similar. Will the district consider going to 2 cohorts?
Thank you for your question. We're going to review all of our class sizes on the secondary level in each of the cohorts in the next week or so. And when the district task force meets, that'll be part of our conversation as to what steps we can take moving forward.
Okay. The second part of her question. Due to COVID, what cleaning measures are being taken at school? For instance, if there is a person removed due to a potential COVID case, what are the protocols?
Yes, every night after the students leave, the custodians are cleaning all the surfaces, inside the desks, anywhere that students touch, light switches, doorknobs. They're also taking care of that as best as they can throughout the day. Mr. Schneider, you want to embellish on that any more than that?
I can certainly add to it. You know, on Wednesdays, whether or not somebody has the virus in the classroom, on Wednesdays, the custodians are engaging in a much deeper cleaning of the elementary classrooms. So they're cleaning the undersides of the desk, inside the desk. They're doing dusting. They're making sure that all the windows are cleaned thoroughly. If there's a student or anyone in the classroom who is confirmed of being afflicted with the virus, they're going to engage in that cleaning activity regardless of whether or not it's Wednesday or not. So the Wednesday, it's a much more thorough cleaning. But as you said, on the other days, they're cleaning all the touch surfaces, the flat surfaces. And it's one of the reasons why the district pushed to have the classrooms thinned out of as much furniture as possible to just reduce the number of surfaces that the custodians had to clean to make sure they could attend to everything in a thorough manner each night. And I should just take a minute, if I can, to just praise the work of the custodians. They're working very hard. We don't have as many custodians as we would like to see. And Ryan Jacobellis and his staff are really putting in a lot of hard work in their hours to make sure that these buildings are ready for students and staff each day.
Thank you.
Okay. The last question/comment from Steve Legnina from Aquabog. A substantial portion of the last several months of Board of Education meetings have revolved around funding. One way to increase funding for our school district is for parents to complete the 2020 census. According to the federal government census website, completing the census helps direct billions of dollars in federal funds to local communities for schools, roads, and other public services. Given there is only 8 days left to complete the census, and that the census will affect the next 10 years of funding, would the Board of Education be willing to send a reminder phone call out to parents? Our schools and our communities certainly deserve every dollar we can get from the federal government.
Ms. Toner, can we send out a robo for that?
We have it ready to go for tomorrow. That was part of our plan. I think Mr. Lagnita is really in tune with our conversations lately.
There you go.
Yeah, so we actually put up some information on our district website as well. I believe we're pushing out through Facebook as well to remind everyone in the community to complete that census. And as I mentioned in my statement earlier, it really doesn't even take 10 minutes, but it's very important that everyone completes the census for their family. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the waiting room, Mr. Schneider?
No, Mrs. Downs, there's no one there.
Okay, before we leave, I just have to say one thing. I want to congratulate Mr. Waylon Taylor. We accepted his retirement tonight. He's a custodian. He's been working for the district since 1988. 34 years of dedicated service. And we, the board, want to wish him a happy and healthy, well-deserved retirement. With that said, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. A second, please.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Dorr? You're muted.
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Dr. Kukunis?
Yes.
Ms. Healy?
Yes.
Ms. Zahowski?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. Good night, everybody. Next meeting is going to be hopefully live and in person. Everybody have a good night.
Good
Good night.
Good night.